was kind of weird. Being from a single family home, I was at home a lot by myself because my dad, obviously, as an officer, was, he had some different hours. So I had to grow up pretty fast. So I had an imagination as a kid that, helped me in my career. I think all through the years. I was an avid sports follower, not just any particular sport. I just watched sports. And so I was intrigued by all aspects of sport. And I would go for hours. I'd go down to the elementary school and I would pretend I was the Boston Celtics against the LA Lakers. That was the rivalry at that time. So I would literally play like games as if I was all five players.
Eric, I did the same.
The ball.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Exact same thing as a kid.
Yeah.
Like with you guys. You guys were the guys we would play with in the 90s. But yeah, same exact thing.
Yeah, I would do that, and I'd fake like I'd pass it to the wing, fake like I was coming off pick and rolls and shooting, and the crowd was going crazy, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 buzzers and shot clocks and all that stuff as a kid. And I did that in all types of sports. I'd even do it with football.
Yep.
I would go outside and throw the baseball like I was pitching, and I'd throw the baseball against the garage. And the way it came off the garage would be like a hit, and I'd go and field it and throw the person out. I just, that was the kind of imagination I had as a kid. And I think that kind of just helped me along the way.
You're describing my childhood because that's exactly the baseball, football, basketball. And in the 90s, we were lucky to grow up in an era with, obviously the NBA had so many intriguing personalities. And, we grew up, like my generation I'm 38. So my generation grew up with you guys. I mean, it was 90. Yeah. That's why my page, I created the 90s NBA based on the fact that there wasn't any social media back then. So everyone had the magazines with the different rosters. And when people got traded, you had to figure out where did they go and you had to scratch them out. And it was, it's old school. So it was, and with you guys, especially I know you came out in 96 and, that whole draft class that's a whole different conversation. Just, legendary really. And that's not an overstatement. And college basketball, Eric, back in those days, people stayed 4 years. It wasn't now where it's one and dones. And I love college basketball now, but it's just not, to me, it's not the same as it was back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where, you have guys staying longer. I mean, Tim Duncan stayed 4 years at Wake Forest, and he could have probably went out after his freshman year. So, again, we'll get to that, but you're describing my childhood to a T, throwing, the ball against a brick wall, playing football. And I used to play games. I actually had whole seasons I would just play with myself. Whole seasons of like in the NBA, for example, and I was a Cavs fan, so I would play out the whole season. I would play against every team. I knew every player. That's why me and my friends were the same way. We were all 10, 11, 12 years old, and that was what we did. Yeah. There wasn't as many video games. There wasn't social media, so we weren't on those, and I loved it. I wouldn't have traded that era for the world.
I agree. I absolutely agree. The other facet of our era was that we didn't really lock into one particular sport
exactly
so early on. We engaged and did. I think each sport gave us different elements. They worked different muscles. You trained differently. You stayed active.